I'm sick, you might say, with Parkinson's, which is to say I'm a little bit dispirited. And it's a bad situation to address being let down. But I propose to try to evaluate the situation of podcast community that exists online. I've never gotten any traction in it, but they're clearly aware of me and provide feedback about what I have written and said, usually angling to spoil it for me somehow. The fact that I've been disappointed by peers is well known. They can't seem to understand that their ideology is a weapon that has and can, and I hesitate to say will be because it sounds like I want them to be um, victims of their own ideology. I don't. That's what's so surprising to me about them is that I've done nothing but try to protect them. But it comes from the very beginning. If you followed any of my things, you know that I said it, I expect my efforts on behalf of Gaza to be thankless, not just because they have more important things to worry about than me in their own lives, but because I stand as a object lesson that they have ridiculed in the past without my understanding why or who with. Of course, a lot of things came to light over the course of the last 30 years with regard with what befell me as a child. And British ideology has been to use me as an Thousand and One Nights character. I have to constantly answer their venoms in an interrogation system through the media. And the gay community and the transvestite community and the whole colors green system puts up this idea. Well, I mean, if your starting point is that none are free until all are free, that's a way of saying anybody who tries to be free is going to be doubly attacked. You're not getting out of your slavery, period. And that comes from somewhere. That comes from deep within media. British ideology is sort of like the pecking order rules that followed with the industrialization of the Ohio River Valley. I'm not sure exactly which ethnicity was used first, but the Irish were pitted against the Italians were pitted against the blacks, and now we have what Owen Jones calls a ladder of racism, where anti-Semitism and anti-black is at the top and paramount and very important, and Islamophobia or Islamic hatred is down at the bottom. It's important, but it's not as important. The robot generator generates a antagonist. This is UW dialectical. They automatically generate an antagonist. The trans community announces that the Muslim community supported them in British elections. And if you dare to question the alliance potential, you're up against an ultimate fighter from the trans community. And this is like Mick Jagger getting his jollies, like generating this kind of robo warrior PlayStation situation. When in reality, Muslims went along with the AIDS attack almost, and you can argue that their reasons were that they didn't believe or didn't know about. I tried to inform people about Gail Burston, but the gay community had their John Lennon pussyball story about Midori Goto, who was with the UN and so on and so forth. I mean, that's old news for people who followed me. And So they're not inclined to be embarrassed by what they've done, which is measurable in my condition, being sick with Parkinson's, being deaf, being castrated by a rock band from England who I loved. I mean that's Nosferatu at its most brilliant. And the Zionist laughs are just incredibly unending. And the gay community, like Owen Jones, would have to admit that they cheered this on with David Geffen and his stuff with Peter Gabriel. But what I fear we're dealing with here is an Olympiad of podcasts. In other words, the whole idea of invading Gaza was sort of a shark festival of let's see them who can outcry who, because they're all just going to be sitting there on their hands saying there's nothing we can do. So they have this Olympia podcast going on, and Gail Burstyn is like GB for Great Britain, right? And Great Britain, anytime you question the Beatles, they say, "We love you." Yeah. And it's like, nah. And let's go with the presumption that John Lennon really died, which is, I mean, factually discredited. He pulled a Houdini. This is his masterpiece theater work. But let's say that it's true. And they're pinned the tail on the donkey game, which is how they introduced this to some of the Kidsburg people in Fox Media living in my house. The pin the tail on the donkey game was too much fun to shut down. Okay, so there's this idea that John Lennon really died, or even if he didn't die, and we know that he didn't die, it's too much fun not to put a deaf victim of torture and horror in a meat grinder from the Three Stooges, leaving him bloodily crippled with Parkinson's, in seizures and so forth. Because King Crimson thinks the Gurdjieff crowd need to chew a carpet or two now and then on the road to the new Vichy France that they're determined to build in the name of Gurdjieff, who collaborated with the Nazis in Europe back when Paris was the capital of Germany, which Trumpy Tune wants it to be again. So you have a situation where they feel they're just lying back because the infidels don't believe in Allah or Jesus. If you look at the history of religion, a lot of it is propaganda warfare. I'm not sure it was Ieyasu Tokugawa, but I think it was Ieyasu Tokugawa. Ieyasu Tokugawa, who invented the pit of yammering. It was just feces degradation. They would dangle Christian missionaries over it, screaming in horror until they committed apostasy. So all you had to do was renounce your Christianity and you would be let go. And the Christians had similar activities like burning people with the stake and so forth. So you know, investigating these things puts you in the line of fire, particularly at the University of Pittsburgh, who used military Christianity for the AIDS attack with the help of some of these Islamo-fascists at work. And Anna Polakotskaya tried to report on Russia's role in these sorts of activities. She did not either know about or care about the AIDS attack. That much is certainly true. So her death date was Putin's birthday, which was the anniversary of the Stork Battalion swarming into the rave that Egypt and Israel put in their path. So if you look at the situation for me, it's a special kind of thanklessness that resembles sort of a broken home. Imagine like a guy who just works really hard. He's really sincere, and he like Giganti in the film Camille Cardell, and the and she leaves him, and suppose in this situation it's not exactly like Giganti and Camille, but the character who the woman or the man, depending on which one of them is the one being rejected. They have children. Let's say they have a child, a broken home of one adult, two adults, and a child. And one of the one who initiates the divorce leaves gains custody of the child and begins poisoning the name of the other parent, who's just a country bumpkin, doesn't know how to respond, can't respond, and is just tormented by the injustice that he can't do anything about. So you have this situation of um, a scimitar being used from the custody division of the broken home. It's clear the culture, Jeffin culture, Kamala Harris, God's gift, have custody of the idea that John Lennon died, and they produced and directed and stage managed this with Paul McCartney's Blood Oath and Death Vow trannies to Midori Goto, even though that was advocacy for the war game, on the weakness of the curse of Ono on the House of Crary because of World War II. And that I knew nothing about it was my guilt, supposedly. Now, I certainly knew that there was an element of Moxie land to the sad way that the Palestinians, sincere, the bumpkins in Palestine, were being rallied by Roger Waters and Mick Jagger. I mean, who could miss their partnership in this? To salute the idea that the idea will survive. You see, it's like Moxieland, where the people who were stage managing the resistance were the corporation that was being resisted against, because it just intensifies their power. And there's basic things that become issues of avoidance, like the way Putin and Zelensky index name the same concept. The idea put in two versions, or Zell's AIDS formula. Zelensky, Wispensky. Zealous for fidelity. And Jagger, of course, laughs while making slaves of all of us. Other things that were conspicuously allowed was, like, for example, the way that Dr. Proctor at CCAC openly said, I don't care about the letters of Gail Burstyn. And Duvall at CCAC says, I know Bush started AIDS, I support him for it. The same thing is in evidence with COVID-19. They were talking about batshit crazy entered the lexicon. They put up the word geriatricide. Gentrifying was being complained about. They introduced the word catastrophizing. A woman named Ruth disappeared, implying ruthless. So and it's not investigated. Nobody's making an issue of it. So you end up, I sort of understood. There was a film called Rickshaw Man. Rickshaw Man was a boy who loved the Rickshaw Man because he was a country bumpkin who could really wow people with his drumming skills at the ancient festivals. But as the boy grew older and entered the society where social standing was very important, Rickshaw Man proved to have no status, and he died abandoned by the children who once loved him. This is the sort of situation that um, the podcast Olympiads would have to labor to remedy. I've done my best to illustrate why I think it's criminally insane to stand for what Amanda Harcourt has pulled. These British people represented themselves with phrases like, I love you, man. That was the sort of thing that they said while they were poisoning me, setting up Def Genie for rape, conspiring to obliterate Gaza, and then come on to the people of Gaza saying, we're your standard bearers. We want to salvage your flag for you to be the saving remnants. I mean, I do appreciate that there was some help with Mackenzie Shirilla from the direction of the Palestinian intellectuals. It, it, when I say it breaks my heart, what I mean to say is it moves me to tears that somebody would see the point of helping Mackenzie. Because she is, I hate to use the word, because I'm so afraid it'll turn someone around in the sensitivity for the fact that she was car bombed by Nosferatu's forces. But she's a martyr of what really began with the vinyl solution pouring through the skies of East Palestine, Ohio, in the winds of Strongsville, down there by the border of Pennsylvania where lies Pittsburgh, and the intellectual fabric of the Trumpy-tuned Putinese, which is now engulfed, but often have reason to thank Palestinian feminist intellectuals, and Robert Fripp's sister, who says the virginity proves rape, even if the victim denies it.